Welcome to the DNA show.
DNA? Dude, are we doing a science show?
No, D is for Dennis.
Oh, A is for Andy.
And N is for and?
Oh, man, nerds.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we're nerds, dude.
Yeah. Well, good. Then we can talk about comics and movies and pop culture and sports.
Sports. Sports and nerds. Yeah, we're going to make that work.
All right, let's roll.
Howdy ho, welcome back to the Dennis and Andy Show. I'm Andy.
And this is Dennis.
And we are here on episode 5, talking about a bunch of different stuff. One thing I wanted to ask, I always like asking my buddies this, because I'm a kid and I get giddy whenever I think about it, is what was the first R-rated movie you saw? Or, for me, before I give my answer, the question I usually pose is, what was the first R-rated movie you saw with your parents, whether it be your dad or your mom or whoever? And I like asking it that way because, to me, there's more of an embarrassment factor depending on what the movie was and how old you were.
I can see that.
You know? And I've asked other friends, and some friends I've asked have said, well, the first R-rated movie I saw, I actually snuck into, so I wasn't with my parents. So everybody has their different stories, so it doesn't, But that's the question. So feel free on our Facebook page, the Dennis and Andy Show, to pop down what your first R-rated movie was.
Yeah. Andy had asked me which one I had seen with my parents first at the theater. Well, that would be 0 of them. My dad, the last movie he saw in the movie theater was Jaws. So, yep. Why would I pay to go to a theater when I can watch the movies at home? And literally, so if I ever went, it was with my mother, like we went to E.T. and stuff like that.
Right.
But, yeah, my mother would never take me to a rated R, so no. I never went with my parents to see a rated R movie together as a family.
See, it's... One, that just cracks me up. The last movie your dad saw in the theater was Jaws. That is incredible. You're talking like Jaws 6 or something, right?
Nope. Original Jaws.
Original Jaws, 1975. Wow, that is insane.
Yep.
Your dad does not like to leave the house, apparently.
Not for movies.
Yeah, I grew up in a kind of a movie family, I guess, where my mom wasn't a big movie person, but my dad was. I guess that's where I get it from. And I can vividly remember the summer of 1982, going to see, with my dad and my brother, Fast Times at Richmond High.
Ooh, yeah.
Fast Times at Richmond High. There I am with my... What is that? Oh, there we go. There I am, sitting... My dad's in the middle. I'm on one side. My brother's on the other. It came out in the summer, so I was 12. My brother was 14 at the time. And I enjoyed it because Phoebe Cates took her top off. In the scene at the swimming pool where Judge Reinhold was in the bathroom tickling his fancy, if you know what I mean. And he's looking out the window at Phoebe Cates going swimming. And I still remember she's walking on the diving board and she takes her top off. And of course, this was all in Reinhold's mind, but Phoebe actually did it in the movie. And as a 12-year-old boy, as much as I enjoyed seeing boobies for the first time, the other thing nagging me was, my dad's sitting right next to me and I'm seeing boobies. This is awkward. It was just awkward feeling.
Yeah. Cover your eyes, kind of awkward.
Well, what was the first R-rated movie you saw?
So, okay, this is a hard question. So, we had... My wife says we were fancy because we actually had... I saw the launch of MTV.
Oh, I did too.
Yeah, we had cable back then, and HBO was a big thing when it came out. So, like, my parents would leave, and things were... you couldn't see it because they were locked down.
Oh, right.
Well, as soon as my parents would leave, you could go into the back of the TV, and they had a knob for the fine tuning, and then you could adjust that, and then there was one on the cable box, so even though it was scrambled, you could get them to come in. Just it took a little bit of ingenuity. So I remember watching Halloween, when my parents were gone, which was a great movie, still a classic to me. But the one that I actually went and saw when we got into the theater for in 1984, when A Nightmare on Elm Street was launched.
Ooh.
And again, another horror movie, so I think we see a pattern going there. But it was great. And who knew that Johnny Depp was going to become just as big as he was? But I think he died pretty quickly, if I remember.
He was the dude that was sucked into the bed. And then all the blood went all over the ceiling and stuff, if I remember right.
Yep. So my buddies and I, that's when we had went to theater to see, to get in.
I think the first one I saw without my parents, just, myself and a couple buddies, was Porky's. Remember Porky's?
Yeah.
And Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, yes.
Porky's was the one, if I remember correctly, where it had the glory hole.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then the gym teacher, didn't the dude stick it through, and then the gym teacher grabbed it and started yanking on him and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, was that... Okay, so I guess I'll explain glory hole as easy as I can. It's basically a hole in a wall, and a dude sticks his junk through the hole because on the other side is supposed to be a woman that plays with your stuff. Now, in Porky's, it was the hole went to the female locker room, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why, because the girls would see it and be like, oh my God, what is that? And just, whatever in the movie. But then the one time the female coach walks in, who of course is the burly female coach, and grabs the dude and just starts yanking on him, not in a good way.
Yeah. Those are classic teen movies from when we were Last American Virgin. I didn't see that in the theater, but again, HBO. I mean, that was those were the genre of movies that we got to watch.
Well, Revenge of the Nerds.
Still love it.
Who would think that one of the nerds, Anthony Edwards, would go on to Top Gun?
Two O's and Goose.
And then from Top Gun to ER.
I know, right?
For what, 11 years or so?
Right.
I don't know what he does now. I think he's more behind the camera. Either that or he's just going, I collect checks from ER. But,
yeah, and the dad was James Cromwell. You only saw him basically at the beginning.
That's right.
And he's been in everything. Yes, Star Trek movies and stuff. First Contact. But
and I don't know the actor's name. I might even look it up, but you'll know the character if you saw Revenge of the Nerds. Booger.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in a ton of stuff. It's always comedic stuff generally, or he's kind of a...
And it's the same type of character.
Or if it is a drama, he's still kind of a tech nerd type guy.
Yes.
But yeah, him, and there were what? 2? I know there were 2. Were there 3 Revenge of the Nerds? They were definitely hitting off on all cylinders back then, because it was Revenge of the Nerds, Revenge of the Nerds 2... Porky's.
Right. Well, Robert Carradine, because he was one of the 3 Carradine.
Yeah.
He was I guess you would call him the main nerd, because that's who the main story, because that was the love interest with Betty Childs was her name in the movie. But Robert Carradine, because, he's the brother of Keith and David.
Right.
And Keith is on, Dexter. And then David, of course, was Grasshopper back
Kung
from
Fu.
the Kung Fu.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't one of them dead?
Yeah, David.
David is Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Do you remember, was it Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield?
Oh, I remember
Was
the Triple Lindy, right?
Yeah, Triple Lindy. But was it called Back to School? Because he went back to college.
Yeah.
With his...
It was Back to School.
Wasn't his son going to college? Because he's a rich dude, paid for his son to go, and was like, I'm going to go back to school as well. Yeah, the Triple Lindy, man. That was just...
Yeah. And then when you saw Rodney Dangerfield do it, and I am using air quotes here.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Where Rodney Dangerfield gets up on that high dive to do the Triple Lindy, and then you're like, that's a stunt double.
Yeah.
Obviously, but they could have tried to get somebody not in shape. Because it's not like Rodney Dangerfield was in shape at all.
It was awesome. Well, then Ted McGinley, he was from it, which, for...
what's that?
He was Stan Gable, which was the main, I guess, preppy bad guy.
Yeah.
But we all knew him from, Married with Children. He became the second husband.
The second husband of
the neighbor. Can't think of her name off the top of my head.
I know, and it's not Doris, but for some reason Doris comes to mind, but it's not Doris.
Amanda. All I can think of is that's her name.
That's the actress's name.
Yeah, it's the actress's name, but I can't think of what the screen name was. But she had her first husband, and then he was the second husband, and he was hands down my favorite in that show. But so Revenge of the Nerd had a lot of really good people in it.
So I watched Married with Children every week.
Yeah.
Watched it religiously.
Me too.
It was, that's when the Fox network first started. Yep. It was one of their breakout shows. And I can remember watching that. And Al Bundy, Ed O'Neill. And back then, watching it going, one, it was hysterical, but two, just going, oh, that old guy is so funny. And when you think about it now, he was younger than we are now when he played Al Bundy.
Yes.
Because he was like early 40s, late 30s when he played Al Bundy. And I'm sitting there, I was like 17, 18 years old going, look at that old guy. He's so funny.
The high school football breakout. I mean, come on. Married with Children was just a classic. And, I mean, Ed O'Neill, still, even with Modern Family and stuff now. Christina Applegate, she's been a favorite of mine, actually, because of that show. Katie Seagal, we love her in Futurama, but come on.
Sons of
Who
Anarchy.
could make up, but Peggy in her walk and her high heels. Oh, she was just, the best. Amanda Bierce was the name, and it was Marcy. Marcy.
Didn't Amanda voice some Simpson character? Or am I...
Nope, don't know.
Never?
Don't know. She could have.
She might have.
Realize that so many people have been on there. And then, because then Ted was her husband, Jefferson. And then Steve was the first actor. I remember him. But then when he was gone, then Jefferson became it. I actually thought Jefferson, he was probably one of my favorites in the show.
Well,
him and Al with No Ma'am.
I don't know if I'm getting him confused with another actor or not, but there was an actor that was on Happy Days, and he's been like a second tier character on a lot of shows. But whenever I saw, Happy Days was what, late 70s, early 80s,
right?
And whenever I see him, even like a decade later, he's this dude that just doesn't age.
Yeah,
I just can't remember his name, but he has brown hair, medium length brown hair, so. I don't know. That's strange. Oh, well. So, those are R-rated movies. Love to hear what your first R-rated movie was.
Yeah.
I'll never forget
first
Fast
one
Times.
Versus our favorite one.
I actually Googled Phoebe Cates topless, and what came up? A GIF of her taking her top off from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yep. Classic movie.
Personally, I feel dirty looking at it. Even though she's older than I am in real life.
She is.
I still feel a little dirty looking at her teenage self.
Yeah. So that brought us up to a topic where Andy asked me about bedtime stories if I'd heard about it. So,
oh God,
what's up with Tom Hardy nowadays?
Tom Hardy, as I remember Tom Hardy, the voice of Bane, or not voice, but played Bane in Batman about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, is doing bedtime stories, believe it or not, for what's it called? It's called CBB's Bedtime Stories. And he's reading like a bedtime story a week or something. I've got a little clip here we can play so you can hear Tom Hardy.
Tonight's bedtime story. It's a sausage dog. Me too. And tonight's story is about a colourful sausage dog, just like our...
All right, that's enough of that, because I can't listen to Tom Hardy telling a bedtime story where he says it's about a sausage dog and he doesn't crack up. How do you not crack up telling a bedtime story about a sausage dog? And the thing is, I don't know. I know he's not American, but whenever I think Tom Hardy, because it's such an American sounding name, I think American. So when I actually hear him talk, I always think he's putting an accent on, not that's how he usually talks.
Well, I mean, think of him from, well, like you just said, what movies? So you've got Bane, from The Dark Knight. Mad Max, he played the last Mad Max movie. Venom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
but
just,
I want him to read me a bedtime story in the voice of Bane.
Bane. Well, first we'd have to put on some breathing apparatus so we kind of sound like Darth Vader.
Go to sleep. This is Bane. I want you to have sweet dreams.
Oh,
that was awful. I know.
Well, it didn't sound anything. Well, maybe when he was in Inception, maybe when the world was flipping. Mm-hmm.
That is one Christopher Nolan movie I've never seen.
You have?
I've never seen Inception.
All right, we need a project. We are going to have to.
I know. I need to watch it.
I actually don't even think I can loan it to you. I don't own it, so we'll have to pick that up. You have to watch it.
I don't have to do that. It's on demand. I was actually flipping through stuff over the weekend. I think it's on Netflix.
Oh,
because I was looking through stuff on Netflix to watch, and Inception came up, and I was tempted to do it, but one, I saw it's 2.5 hours, and I was just not in the mood for. You have to be in the mood for a 2.5 hour movie.
Yes,
and
you got to be wide awake for this movie. I've only seen it once, and I am glad I saw it in the theater because you can't have distractions because there's so much going on in this movie.
Okay, I've heard that. Well, it's Christopher Nolan. It's intellectual,
right?
And then it's 2.5 hours. So that I was like, not in the mood. And I sound like my daughter when I say this, but I saw it was from 2010, and I'm like, it's so long ago. Do I even want to watch this?
Are you serious?
Yeah, because my daughter...
Well, I did just see Doctor Strange, and it's the same kind of thing folding in. So, yeah, I've seen Inception.
Well, it's funny because, I'm like, my daughter loves the Marvel movies like I do, and I'm like, oh, you should watch the... first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. And she's like, when was it made? And I'm like, 2000, 2001. She goes, no, that's an old movie. And it just cracks me up. And then I realized over the weekend, I saw that Inception was 2010. I'm like, 2010.
But it was still good. It's not like it was that. Come on, it's a decade.
Well, that was one. Well, it wasn't one of his breakouts, but it was one with such good reviews.
Yeah.
And stuff. I guess one of the other things that kind of turned me off to it, and it's really weird, I have no real good explanations behind these turnoffs, but Leonardo DiCaprio, for some reason, and I like Leonardo as an actor, that's the weird thing. But just with Inception, I'm just like, I don't know.
It was a good movie. I don't know.
Well, I love all his movies. I mean, Tenet. Well, that is supposed to come out this summer.
Well, let's hope, because that was on our to-see list.
God, I hope it does, because that looks so good. Like, Nolan's a guy, obviously... What was his... Oh, God. Now I'm trying to remember where his first movie was. So I remember seeing it. We'll Google it. I remember seeing Christopher Nolan's first... Well, I remember seeing a movie and really, really enjoying it. And, it's in the 90s. And I had no idea. I wasn't really paying attention to directors and stuff back then. And now I see stuff and I'm like, oh my God, this guy directed that. So I'm looking it up. I will say Interstellar.
I was going to say Interstellar was a great movie. It was nowhere as near his first one, but that was another one because, of course, I love Matthew McConaughey.
I just thought of it. Memento. I love Memento. You don't know Memento?
Nope.
If I've got to watch Inception, which I don't mind doing, you've got to watch Memento.
Okay.
Do you not know anything about Memento? Oh my God! I'm gonna.
All right, so I am writing this down now so that we can talk about this during the next podcast. Memento.
So Memento is about a man that suffers short-term memory loss, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's so short-term that he leaves clues and messages for himself as tattoos on his body. So when he wakes up the next day, he sees these, and he's basically trying to track down his wife's killer. And the whole thing with Memento is, so I can't remember if I mentioned it in a previous episode, but I do improv, acting with troupe called the Charlotte Comedy Theater. I haven't done it in a while, but I started in '05, went pretty strong for almost a decade. Anyhow, one of the games in improv that we play, a short form game, is called Memento. And the point of the game is you do the whole scene backwards. So if Dennis and I were going to play Memento, for instance, we get the last line of the movie from the audience, because it's like that TV show.
Whose line is it?
Whose line is it anyway?
Yeah, love that.
So for instance, you'd ask the audience. You'd have the two players up on stage, and you'd ask the audience. The host would give us the last line of a movie, and somebody might shout out, "It's about to explode." So the way the game works is, if I was starting the scene, I would say, "It's about to explode." And then my scene partner, his next line would have to be the line before that. And then my next line's... So it's one of the hardest improv games to play.
Because you're always having to think backwards.
Right. Because the scene ends at the beginning. And it's not scripted, so you're making everything up. And I can honestly say I've played that game a dozen times or so, and I've really done it, because I can remember everybody just really applauding once. I've done it once where we actually did it front or backwards to front awesomely, and the audience was like, "Oh my God, you guys killed that." And other times it's usually a train wreck, but that's what makes it funny. So Memento's told backwards.
All right. So I will add that to my list to watch, and then you have to add Inception.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it starred, let me see here, cast and crew. I know who it starred, but I hate getting things wrong when it's right here. So I'm just going to look it up. It's taking forever, of course, so I'm going to go Guy Pearce.
Oh!
You know Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
Yep. He was a star in Memento, and that was a Christopher Nolan movie, original screenplay.
Okay.
Yep.
It's already on my list.
And it came out, how long did this movie come out? It came out, let's see, Memento, of course it doesn't, it's not, storyline, it's not.
2000.
2000, so 20 years ago.
Oh, Carrie-Ann Moss. Ooh.
Oh, dude.
Another reason to watch that, because I loved her in The Matrix.
It is such a fantastic film. And when you think about the types of movies that Nolan does, and now, he's writing and directing. I don't believe he directed Memento, but, he did write it. It just, you can just tell. You're like, oh yeah, this is Nolan.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, that sounds awesome. Well, from movies, we're going to move on to an interesting thing that happened on Facebook. Oh. So I got this video that was sent, and it went viral. And it was a prank. So we started out this prank, and of course I had to share it. And it looked cute at first. So
it looked innocent enough.
It did. The girl was like, oh, her boyfriend was sleeping, or husband, and she thought it would be really great to take, they have these waxing patches. You put wax on them, then you stick them on the hair, and then you rip them off. Well, he's sound asleep. And she puts 2 on his leg, like one on his calf, on the side of his leg, 1 on his back, and he slept through it, which I wouldn't have, but apparently he's a deep enough sleep.
No way I would have slept through that.
And then she puts 1 in his armpits.
Oh. Did she do his chest, too?
So he started off, and she's like, he's still sleeping. And she goes, well, it's going to wake him up. So the prank was going to wake him up by pulling the hair off. And so she sneaks onto the bed, and she's all down in her crouch position. She reaches down on his back, where one of them, she grabs the corner and just pull it. You can hear it. And he jumps. I could feel the pain he went into.
He jumps out of the bed. He's looking at her stunned. And then he looks down and he sees that he has more of these wax patches that are 2 inches wide by 4 to 5 inches long on his armpit, his chest. And there's no pulling it off gently at that point.
Nope.
Because it really is rip the Band-Aid off.
Right.
You can't do it slow.
But he doesn't know this because he has had no experience doing it. He's like, baby, they go and get a pair of scissors and she's trying to get scissors and cut around it. Not going to work.
No. And he's just having to rip these things off and the pain in his face. And that is like, I'm sorry, but if you can't just smack her, I'm not saying close fist because you can't punch a woman, but if you can't just smack her for that, I'm sorry, but that should be allowed because that is some pain.
She knew it, and you could tell
she was laughing.
She thought it was funny at first. I don't think she realized how incredibly painful. If you watch it till the end, it was like, wow.
Well, at least when a woman has that done, I'm sure the first time it's a shock to their system. But if you're the type that doesn't shave, I guess, type of lady that doesn't shave and does this type of waxing, you know what you're in for. You can kind of prep yourself for it. And let's be real, you're not letting your hair grow as long as like this dude's, an average man's underarm hair either. Because that does make a difference longer the hair is, So she had to know how cruel this was going to be.
I can't speak because I've never had it done, and nor will I ever have anything waxed after seeing this.
No, no waxing has ever occurred, and the only shaving that happens is my face and the top of my bald head. But I will say, when it comes to pranks, when I was in art school, I went to the Kubert School of Cartoon and Graphic Art, and when I was in art school, in my second year, I was living with two other guys. We were sharing a house. And there was no waxing involved, no bodily prank involved in this. But what they did was, at the time, I was dating a girl that lived in town. The school was in New Jersey, and she lived in town. And I was over at her house for dinner, and her dad was a principal at the high school in town. And we heard some noise outside, so we go running outside, and we see two dudes running down the street. And we just assumed it was kids from his school playing some type of prank on him or whatever. So I go to leave, and I think I was driving a 1989 Sunbird at the time, Pontiac car, and it had the type of door handle that you didn't push a button, you put your hand underneath and lift it up. With lever type handle, whatever you call it.
Okay.
So, I was leaving for the night, and this was like an hour or so after this happened, and it was like, all right, bye, whatever. And I stick my hand under, and it was just full of the Vaseline gel, the gelatin type of Vaseline, so not the cream, and it was just like, I stuck my hand, and I was like, what the hell? So I went around to the passenger side, same thing, because it's only a two-door car. So we just chalked it up to, the dad. My girlfriend's dad apologized because he's like, it must have been these high school kids playing a prank. And they thought it was my car, I guess. Sorry about that. They gave me some paper towels, wipe it off, whatever. No biggie. Drive home. The house we rented was a duplex, and we rented the top part. But you entered the front door and had to walk up stairs to go to the second floor of this duplex. It was our own entrance, so it was just, as soon as you open the front door, boom, set of like 12 stairs. So I open the door, no big deal. And I go to start walking up the stairs. And there's saran wrap on every stair.
What?
Yeah, and the stairs are carpeted. So basically, it's a way to make somebody slip and fall. So I see this, all the lights are out, and I see this, and I'm like, goddamn roommates. So I sidestep the saran wrap. And I try turning on the light as well at the bottom of the steps, and the light won't turn on either. So I'm like, what the hell? So I walk up the stairs gingerly. I get to the top of the steps, and as soon as you get to the top of the steps, you would turn right to go down the hallway to the bedrooms. They put saran wrap across the hallway at head level, head shoulders, thinking I'd run into it. I didn't, because I'm a genius. So that's two things. They got me onto one. The Vaseline under the door, because it was them.
Yep.
Obviously, I found out later. I dodged the saran wrap on the steps. I dodged the saran wrap in the hallway easily. I get to my door, my bedroom door, and I can hear some giggling from underneath one of the other bedroom doors. I'm like, and I yell, and I'm like, you bastards, you didn't get me. Ha ha, your little trick sucked. Screw you guys. And I go to open my bedroom door, I twist the handle, and first, my hand just goes, swing, because they Vaseline the handle, so I couldn't turn it. My hand just went, swoop, right, just slipped right off it. And I'm like, you sons of bitches. And then I press on the door to open it, and the door falls. They took it off the hinges.
Ah, they got you.
So they did get me.
Oh.
Nowhere as bad as waxing, thank God. But they got me.
Yeah, mine, we had a lot of pranks. But the one that I remember most was probably the most painful.
No.
Yeah, we used to go to house parties back in college.
Oh, sure.
So, exactly. And there was a whole group of us, they called us the herd, and we would just tootle on off to a house party. Well, there were a couple of us, and, at that time, I was in jiu-jitsu, some of the other guys were in other stuff. Well, we're always screwing with each other and fake punching and stuff like that. And that's perfectly fine when you're sober. Well, we're on the way back, and it's probably 2:30 in the morning, and we were walking alongside the road, and we would always sneak out, jump out, and punch or try and flip somebody or whatever.
Especially when you're drunk.
Right, because we all look like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, being able to go backwards in slow motion and miss everything, because that's what we feel like we look like.
Right.
Well, lo and behold, one of my friends, he got me, and he came out and actually flipped me. Oh. Now you're thinking, oh, that's not so bad because you know how to properly fall. While sober, you would probably be able to not worry about it. However, we weren't in the middle of the street or on nice soft grass. We were coming up to the curb, and when he flipped me, I went over his head, and my shin smacked right into the concrete curb. Oh. And it hurt. Even drunk, it completely hurt. And they were like, dude, you're bleeding and everything. And I can still remember looking down, and there's blood, and we were trying to wipe the blood off, and there was an entire chunk missing. I could actually see the bone all the way down there. Jesus. So, yeah, it was very, very painful. Well, what are you going to do? Go to the hospital? I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital. No, not in college. I couldn't afford a college bill. So all I did, what did I do? I put on a Band-Aid. Basically like a big Band-Aid, and just kind of said, well, it'll eventually heal. Band-Aid. It was, one of those big gauze Band-Aid things. And it healed over time, and it's funny, to this day, I can stick my leg out, and you'll be able to see the mark right on there. I have no feeling, so I literally, all my nerve endings and everything were gone, so that was one of the worst pranks that went really badly.
So I knew a guy, and this was after college, just right after, a friend of mine, he thought this was funny. He would just go up to people, and he knew them. He wouldn't do this to somebody he didn't know, but still, he would just go up to you and unsuspectingly just punch you right in the balls.
What?
Backhand.
Not even a Rochambeau.
It wasn't, he's coming at you, fist flying forward. He would just come up next to you like, hey, how's it going? And, most guys are around the same height. It's not like this dude was a, basketball player, so his hand was a lot higher. Or, most guys average height. And he would just whack, backhand you right in your neck, right in your nards. And you're just like, you go down to the floor. Huh. And he thought that was just hysterical. And it's like, dude, seriously. But he did it to one guy. And that was the last time he ever did it to that guy.
Oh?
Because this guy knows a little kung fu. And he took it out on him. He wasn't able to block it, because if you're not expecting it, you're not expecting it. But he did flip the guy around a little bit and kind of choke him out. So that was the last time he pulled that crap on that particular guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not so much kung fu. Not a kung fu fan. I got a friend of mine who knows different types of mixed martial arts and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny. Just never walk up to a person who really knows how to fight in different styles as kung fu.
Do you remember watching Eddie Murphy's Raw in the 80s?
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Okay.
I remember Eddie.
Eddie.
I want half.
Eddie. I want half, Eddie.
Oh, we just came up because we were talking about mama burgers. Because we were like, the kids wanted to go to McDonald's. And we were like, why would we do that? And I says, we've got all the fixins here. We'll just make burgers in there. So we're sitting around making hamburgers at home going, Eddie... Oh, and we bring out the mama burger. What are you talking about? You know, you got the big green peppers, you know, and anybody who hasn't seen Eddie Murphy Raw, go back and see it, which is hilarious because we literally were just doing it and laughing about it as we were making it. And we're like, go find on YouTube. You can pull up just the hamburger part. Yeah. So while we were making it, we pulled it up so that my niece and nephew could see what we were sitting here laughing about the big mama burgers.
Was that the stand-up special I'm thinking of where he was talking about if you get into a fight, just act crazy?
Oh, yeah.
That was the one,
guy.
Right?
Yeah, because his main, he had Delirious and then
Raw, he was decked out in total Michael Jackson red.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was, I'll never forget that because luckily, you know, knock on wood, I've never really been in an adult fight as an adult. You know, the closest fight I've ever gotten into has always been with my brother. And, you know, obviously when you're growing up as a kid, we were only 16 months apart, not too different in size. We'd get into scraps even in our teens, late teens. We'd have knockdown, drag out brawls, have to be pulled apart, whatever. But a part of me after watching Raw was like, you just gotta wonder if like somebody gets in your face and if you legit, not laughing, but if you could really keep it together and just started acting nuts and like really confidently acting like you knew what you were doing and all that, if it could back somebody down. I really wonder if it could back somebody down.
I don't know, but I can see the gleam in your eye that you want to go try this.
I so want to try it. Want to try it.
The problem is, you know, the other part of his skit was when he went and saw Rocky.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Jujubes.
And he came out after Rocky.
Excuse me? Yes. That's when I think of Eddie Murphy and right.
Because in that skit is when he pulled the, you know, his white guy voice, right?
Right.
He's like, I can't even remember it that well. My memory's so awful. I can envision it in my head, but not enough to try to quote it. But yeah.
But you can always see Eddie Murphy, and you just wonder how many fights did Eddie Murphy actually get in before he became popular, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And he did this, you know, and he's got those big eyes when he looks at you. And I suppose if you've got big eyes and you sound like it and you rip your shirt off and you look crazy, I don't know. Eddie could pull it off.
Oh, my God. Speaking of Eddie, and then going back to the movie thing real quick. Did you watch Dolemite?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so here's the funny. I watched the Dolemite. It was on Netflix.
Right, watch it on Netflix. Yeah.
And which was great because I had watched some of the comedians at Dolemite and stuff, you know, as a kid listening to.
Influence. Right.
Yeah, right, the influence. But I had never seen, like, the original Dolemite
I didn't know he was real. Like, going into... Okay, so I heard about it last fall. So Dolemite is a made-for-Netflix movie about a real guy, and Eddie Murphy plays him. It's like Eddie Murphy's big comeback. When they were talking Oscar talk and all this, which I thought Eddie Murphy did a fantastic job, but knowing how the Oscar people are, as soon as I heard that, I was like, it would be awesome if he was nominated and won, but I don't see those people nominating him. But, so last fall, it was when it came out, and I was like, Dolemite, what the hell is this? You know, Eddie Murphy, though, I gotta watch the trailer. So I watched the trailer, and I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch this movie. And even going into it, you know, I did a little reading up, but not a ton. I think my reading up was like just on Netflix, how they said it was based on a real person.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, you know, I love comedy. I love the old, you know, I grew up Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Steve Martin. That was, you know, the big guys in the 70s. That was like, you know, George Carlin. You know, that was my time as a kid watching those guys. I'm like, how come I've never heard of this Dolemite guy?
Right. And remember a friend, we started talking about this, and a friend of ours knew all about it. Right. Used to live and have gone into the record store where he was originally
and met him and stuff.
Right.
And So I watched this movie and I'm like, this is just too impossible to be real. And then at the end of the movie, while they're rolling the credits, they show clips from the actual movie. The whole thing is Dolemite is basically a failed stand-up comic, and then he basically creates this character called Dolemite, because that's not his real name, and it's his stage persona, and he just blows up. And then he wants to make a movie, and he sees this actor that at the time is really popular, played by Wesley Snipes in the movie, and he goes up to him, not through his agent, just walks up to him in a bar and pitches him his movie idea.
And Wesley Snipes is like, why are you talking to me? You got an agent. You go talk to him. He's like, no, I'm not going to talk to him. He goes, what would it take for me to do it? He goes, talk to my agent. What if I made you director? Let's talk.
That's right. As soon as he said, what if I made you the director, Wesley Snipes' character in the movie looks up, he's like, all right, let's talk.
Now realize you got Eddie Murphy, who plays Rudy, which is Dolemite.
Yeah.
And then, you start looking at the cast, and the name of the actual show is Dolemite is My Name.
Yeah, that's the movie.
And Keegan from Key and Peele.
Oh, yeah.
He's in it, and he's awesome. Craig Robinson is in it. So, I mean, there is a great cast that's
Keegan from Key and Peele is not even playing a comedic character.
No.
He's playing a more dramatic character, which is, you just don't think that. And he the whole cast did a fantastic job. But,
yeah.
But, so he finally gets the funding, not to spoil more of the movie, but they make the movie inside the movie. And then, like I said, when the credits are rolling, they actually show scenes from the real movie. And it's mind-blowing because it is as cheesy as they made it out to be in the movie with Eddie Murphy. And while you're watching it, you're thinking to yourself, there's no way it was this cheesy. It just can't be. They had to cheese it up just for this. But they didn't. It was that bad. And it's such a
Or was
classic.
it that good?
Or was it that good? That's true. Or was it that... I'll go with it was that good because it looks like a cult classic that you're Googling over there. I don't know if this is something you can tell me. The name of the actual movie.
So the original movie, that's why I was looking up, because after my wife and I watched this, and I said, we got to watch it. And we as soon as we did, we were like, okay, we knew this was based on a real movie. We're like, this movie looks so bad that it's got to be good.
Yeah.
We need to sit down and go back and find it.
Sure.
So the original movie is Dolemite from 1975, and it was Rudy Ray Moore.
Yep.
And I was just looking at, and then, going forward, they've got like the Human Tornado, the Dolemite Explosion, Shaolin Dolemite, Legend of Dolemite.
Shaolin Dolemite.
Yes. So one of the things that we were looking, and it looks so bad that it looks so good. And I mean, they're on a low budget, so like the car chase scenes and things, and they borrowed cars from relatives and friends and explosions. But yeah, this is absolutely, we want to go back and watch the originals just to see how bad or good they really could be.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right, guys, that is our time. We thank you again for listening, sticking with us. We hope you're enjoying the show.
Yep. Next week, I know we're going to hit up a little bit of the NFL. They've got some interesting thing with the coronavirus still in play, that the NFL is doing some virtual stuff. So we will touch topics a little bit from the Cheesehead and the Cowboys fan.
That's right. And we'll talk some comic books next week as well.
All right. We will see you then.
Bye-bye.
Until next week, grab your 3D glasses.
Get your favorite comic books, roll them up, and put them in your back pocket the way you should treat comics.
Throw your pigskin up on the mantle. This is Dennis.
This is Andy. Later friends.